This is the Sports Bash Warm-Up with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN. Now, live inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, here's Josh Hennig.
Truth be told, how we're viewed, that's someone else's opinion. And I know when I look my guys in the eye and we have conversations, we got one goal in mind, that's to go out there and play and win a championship. So that's the only view that matters to me. So I'm with what people say, what people got to say about our team. I get it because we haven't met our expectations so far this year. But we have a new opportunity in Orlando to go out and just play ball and really, scratch a new surface of what we can accomplish.
That was Tobias Harris on ESPN's First Take the other day, talking about the Sixers. He don't care what anybody else thinks. He's ready. He's prepared. He wants to go. I want to win a championship. How about them apples? I'm Josh Hennig. This is the warm-up. Welcome into a Monday edition here on 97.3 ESPN. We are approximately 30 days and change away from the NBA resuming their season. We'll begin to all that and more coming up this hour. Dave McMenamin, ESPN NBA reporter, will join me coming up at 1:25. He contributed to an article right now at ESPN.com about basically, redocumenting everything that happened leading up and after LeBron's decision to go to Miami back in 2010. And for those who heard on the Sports Bash the other day, and we replayed the interview on Saturday, a great interview with Don Van Natta, the ESPN investigative reporter. His backstory was on last night. They're going to be playing replays of it throughout the week. And, one of the biggest takeaways I took from the LeBron breakdown last night, and really it was more about LeBron than it was the actual decision. And one of the things I took away from the thing last night was, anybody who's read, LeBron Inc. by Brian Windhorst, who was on with Mike Gill when that book came out on the Sports Bash, anybody who's read basically anything about LeBron from anybody who's covered him closely over the years, and which is one of the reasons why I'm excited to have Dave coming up on the show today at 1:25. There has obviously been a level of growth and maturity with LeBron from 2010 to now. And I contend that the best thing that could happen to the 76ers was two specific things. Number one, Ben Simmons getting locked up with LeBron and his people as his representation and his workout buddy and part of his inner circle when he came out of college. And the other thing was LeBron not coming to the Sixers and him going to the Lakers. Now, hear me out for a second. If you are going to have anybody influencing Ben Simmons, anybody having some sort of impact on him professionally on and off the court, an impact on him how he should handle his business on and off the court, wouldn't you want it to be LeBron James? Outside of the decision, LeBron James has a pretty impeccable track record of everything he's done on and off the field. On and off the court. He doesn't have any off-the-court drama in his personal life. He doesn't have any scandalous stuff going on in his life. He's kept a very small circle of people around him. He doesn't flounder, put himself out there and, try to make any, crazy moves or crazy decisions. LeBron has been a model citizen when it comes to professional athletes. He's been a role model. He's done a lot for the community, a lot for charity. I mean, this is the guy who's given out, scholarships and given out, opportunities for young people to get a better education, K through 8 with I Promise School. He's raising money to help at-risk youth. He's out there doing things that we only dream about athletes doing, the things that we would love athletes to do. Well, Isn't that the kind of person you want influencing Ben Simmons? And then on the court, we know the player LeBron has evolved into. Many would argue, and I agree with this perspective, that if it wasn't for LeBron going to Miami, he wouldn't be the player that he is today. I genuinely believe that going to Miami maximized his ability to understand the game of basketball better, to understand himself better, and help other players much better than ever before. Because when he was in Cleveland, he was one of the best players in the league, hands down. But it was in Miami that he took that next step to become the best player on the planet. And LeBron, everything that he's learned, all the small mistakes he's made in terms of how he's handled, for example, the decision, some of his off-court business decisions and marketing and relationships that he tried to do initially without having all the tools in front of him to make them happen. The decisions that he's made to leave Miami, go to Cleveland, then leave Cleveland, to go to LA, the reasoning he's done it. Isn't that the kind of person you want having influence over Ben Simmons? Frankly, the fact that Ben Simmons is dating a Kardashian/Jenner is definitely a bad look for him to some people. But I think that Ben can learn a lot from LeBron. And we've seen the pictures of Ben, looking swole. We've seen the videos of him working out with LeBron, running court up and down, getting a sweat in. If you're going to have to do those things with anybody, I'd rather it be LeBron James than any other random player in the league. Because at least LeBron can turn to Ben and honestly say to him, this is what you should do. This is what you shouldn't do. There is something valuable to learning from someone who's been there and done that. You think about where Ben Simmons is right now in his career. Ben Simmons, remember, he missed his first year due to an injury, like every other Sixer, it seems like. He's going to be turning 24 later this summer. He's in his third full year in the league. And right now, when you look at him statistically and efficiently, he's gotten better as a defender. He's been consistently good as a assist man, a guy who sets people up. But he lacks some of the killer instinct. He lacks some of the little things that LeBron has in his toolbox. And these are things that LeBron can look at Ben and say, look, Ben, you have similar skills to me, but there's ways to do what you do better. LeBron, when he was 23, turning 24 years old, think about where LeBron was. First of all, LeBron was further along in his career than Ben is. When LeBron was 23, turning 24, you're talking about a guy who had somehow drug his team to the NBA Finals the year before and lost consecutive years to the two teams that went to the NBA Finals, and the Celtics, and then next year the Orlando Magic. LeBron can give Ben information and knowledge about the game, about how to handle himself, about how to play the game. That if Ben asked anybody else, I'd honestly be questioning things. Think about it. Who would you rather have giving Ben advice? Who would you rather Ben be working out with than LeBron James? Definitely not Kevin Durant. Not Kyrie Irving. I don't think I really want Ben working out with Draymond Green, okay? Maybe Kawhi, but I don't know if Kawhi is really the mentoring type. Russell Westbrook? Maybe. Maybe not. Russell's a little eccentric. He's a little rough around the edges. LeBron at 35 years old has a wealth of life experience and basketball experience and professional experience that all comes from making very few mistakes. And the couple of mistakes he has made, he has exponentially learned from them and bettered himself and improved because of those things. And when you look at, like I said, when you look at Ben Simmons, at the age he is compared to where LeBron was at the same age, LeBron was arguably, maybe not light years ahead, but definitely ahead of Ben at that point in his career. Because when LeBron was 23, turning 24, you're talking about a guy who was in his full 5th and 6th years in the NBA. Ben Simmons is only in his first few. LeBron was already on his second NBA contract. LeBron had already been to an NBA Finals. LeBron had already been through a lot of the wars of attrition. And at that point in his career, he was in a different headspace and a different world than Ben Simmons is. So if I'm going to have Ben work out with anybody, it is 100% I would rather it be LeBron James. You can text in at 609-403-0973. Begin on the conversation. Again, Dave McMenamin, ESPN NBA reporter, coming up at 125. I'm watching that, basically going down memory lane with the decision. And one of the big things also I took away from watching that last night is how much sports have changed. It was mentioned in multiple places now about how people really didn't report things on Twitter like we do now. You put it on your website, you went on SportsCenter, you did a actual hit to report the news. You didn't go to Twitter first and then publish the article online. No, it was the opposite. Even LeBron James in 2010 first joined Twitter. You look at, there was no Instagram exploding back then. Athletes were reviewed differently because LeBron was really the first guy to take his own future in his hands that way. Now we have guys announcing things all the time. We have high school athletes and making press conferences about what college they're going to go to. We have college athletes having press conferences announcing them going to the NBA or releasing press releases. That all originated with LeBron. LeBron took the bullets for the athletes to have what they have today. LeBron took the bullets for social media to evolve the way it has now because of him using social media. We all tend to look at the decision through a lot of eyes of negativity, but when you look back on it, it was ahead of his time. And now that you think about LeBron in LA, playing a point guard position, leading the league in assists how he has. In fact, he's the first non-point guard, quote unquote, because he technically is a point guard, but he's not a point guard, he's a point forward, but whatever. He's the first non-guard to lead the league in assists in over 40 years. That's nuts. So if I'm going to have anybody mentoring Ben Simmons so the Sixers can come back and be the best they can be, it's 100% LeBron. Because Tobias Harris is right. The Sixers have a legitimate chance to win a championship. And if they're going to win a championship, I need all these guys at their best. You think about the Eastern Conference. We know that the Bucks had the best year in the NBA this year. But are they unbeatable? Of course they're not. The Celtics, we know they're beatable. The Raptors don't have Kawhi anymore. The Miami Heat are very dependent on their outside shooting with guys like Duncan Robinson and Kendrick Nunn and Goran Dragic to be able to win a series. They need those guys to be hitting from the outside consistently. But as Tobias Harris said the other day, the Sixers have a chance to win an NBA championship this summer.
At the end of the day, I believe that when we go out here and go hoop, we have a chance to win a championship. We're going to be healthy, a lot healthier than we were before. Having been to be recovered and fully healed is big for us. And we just got to go out there and play basketball. Like, this, for us, is kind of like an AAU tournament. And we just got to go out and hoop and play our best and do what we do. But I really believe that we're going to have a clear-cut shot to win a championship, and I stand on that.
Text board is open, 609-403-0973. And think about it. If Ben's been working out with LeBron, and Joel says he's working out 6 days a week, and he's quote-unquote in great shape, and Tobias says, listen, I've been meeting with my guys, we've been talking throughout the whole offseason. I know when I look at my guys' eyes that we're ready to go. Listen, if all the pieces add up, potential-wise, this Sixers team is definitely more than a dark horse to win it all. And when you watch the weeks progress with guys reporting at training camp, with guys, getting ready to head down to Orlando, we know that, for example, the Toronto Raptors head down early because they don't want to be stuck in Toronto and trying to get across the border. When you think about the Sixers, as I've mentioned here on 97.3 ESPN before, have something that a lot of other teams in the Eastern Conference don't. They have the potential to match one-on-one defensively with anybody in the Eastern Conference. Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid are two guys who have been put on all defensive teams. They've been selected. They've been contenders, people believe, for Defensive Player of the Year. You think about what those guys can do, and then add in the fact that you have a guy like Matisse Thybulle who can guard the perimeter. The fact that Ben Simmons is leading the NBA in steals per game throughout the year at 2.1. The fact that now that you have guys like Glenn Robinson III coming off the bench, the potential of having Al Horford come off the bench instead of starting. You have the opportunity to mix and match different matchups and scenarios. And you have guys coming off of a long rest. The long rest is a negative in some ways because, guys aren't fresh. But it's a positive in some ways that they have the chance to be fully healthy when they come back. I'm definitely interested to see what this offseason will allow the Sixers to do. 609-403-0973. Get a couple texts in here before we hit the break. A reminder coming up at 1:25. We got Dave McMenamin, ESPN NBA reporter. He's covered LeBron James for a long time, covers the league as a whole for ESPN.com. Mike from the Village chimes in and says, whatever happened to the Sixers signing Jamal Crawford ain't word. I think that is been thrown out the window because the Sixers did sign Ryan Broekhoff to one of the final slots. And for those who don't know, the way the slots worked was those extra slots the league gave teams to sign players, they basically were signing G League level guys who had less than 3 full seasons of NBA experience, guys who could be on a two-way contract. So you could either convert them to a two-way contract to a full season contract, or you could sign somebody without the level of experience that would make them unqualified for the G League. So that's where Broekhoff comes in. If I'm understanding what all the experts have said about the Sixers would have had to make some changes on their roster to sign Crawford. They would have had to get rid of somebody else in order to bring him in. Again, that's, according to guys like, Bobby Marks, ESPN front office insider on his ESPN Plus articles. And I was hoping they would sign someone like Crawford because I think they need, and they could use that kind of scoring punch coming off the bench. But I think the Sixers looked at their team and they seem to be okay with where they are at offensively. I think they look at Alec Burks as a younger version of Jamal Crawford. I don't agree with that per se, but I think that's how they're looking at it, with a guy coming off the bench with that kind of scoring punch. I think that's where they are, Mike from the Villas. I think that they decided they needed more scoring and shooting around Ben, Joel, Tobias. Then they needed a guy like Jamal Crawford, who's more of a pure scorer than anything else. 609-403-0973. Dan from EHC chimes in, says, I want Ben working out with Tobias Harris or Al Horford. I want team unity, something the Sixers seem to lack. Well, two things. First of all, I don't think that Ben and Tobias were even in the same area when it came to being able to be where they were living. Ben does spend a lot of time out on the West Coast. Tobias lives in the New York, New Jersey area himself during the offseason. So we've seen Tobias Harris, out there marching with the Black Lives Matter protest. We know that where he's been physically. So I can't blame guys for not being able to work out with each other if they're not even in the same area. With all the restrictions that were going on in the Northeast, I don't think Tobias or any of those guys were going to, risk any, medical or any other issues just to be able to work out together. Now, Tobias Harris himself did admit in the First Take interview that, he understands that, they have been having some chemistry issues. He admitted that himself and talked about that on First Take the other day.
We haven't had the best chemistry throughout the whole year. It took us a while to kind of get everyone together. We battled injuries from the start to the end. And right now, if we're the sleeper, then we're the sleeper.
So they realize that people have a perception of him. And as Tobias Harris also mentioned, look, they've been building chemistry, through this pandemic the best they could, through Zoom calls and things like that. So I understand where you're coming from, Dan, from EHT. You want to see the guys working out together. You want to see team unity, as you call it. But I think the Sixers, like every other NBA team, is doing the best they can considering the environment. And half the reason why you're having these training camp 2.0s for these NBA teams is because of the fact that they've all been scattered across the country and they have been separated from each other. I don't think that belittles or has any less value of the fact of what I was saying before, which is if Ben Simmons is going to work out and get any advice from anybody in the league getting ready to come back, I'd rather it be LeBron than anybody else. I don't think anybody can deny that LeBron has a amount of experience on and off the court that he can give advice to people that a lot of other athletes can't, or at least they can't do it in a way that's going to be beneficial for Ben. That's my bigger point. I understand you want Ben to be working out with his teammates, but that's the whole point of this training camp 2.0. The reason why these guys are going to get together and then head down to Orlando is because that's going to get them back in the same court, in the same building again. And that's a big part of this process, for lack of a better term, is in order to go to Orlando and win a championship, what are you going to do? You're going to go work out, go through this training camp, get guys' legs back under them, then head to Orlando and get ready for this 8-game sprint. 609-403-0973. We'll back to text in just a bit. But coming up next, ESPN NBA reporter Dave McMenamin joins me coming up here on the warm-up here on 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of Sea City. Josh Hennig back here on the warm-up on 97.3 ESPN. We'll be back to your text in just a bit at 609-403-0973. Right now joining me on the Boardwalk Honda hotline, ESPN NBA reporter Dave McMenamin, co-author of the book Return of the King. Also, he contributed to a very insightful article right now at ESPN.com, 3 days in July around the decision. A lot of NBA news going on. Of course, the backstory, LeBron Doc went down last night. To get all of that and more right now, Dave joins us here on the Boardwalk Honda hotline on 97.3 ESPN. Dave, how you doing this Monday?
I'm doing well. Happy to join you.
I'm glad for you to be on. So, one of the things I took away from the backstory last night, and I feel like, going back in time 10 years, kind of puts us all in that, where were you, kind of feel watching it last night. So I want to ask you that, talk about, where you were when all of this was going down with LeBron and the decision and everything, the whirlwind that was those few days around the decision.
Yeah, well, at that stage of my career, I hadn't covered LeBron yet. So I was a Laker reporter for ESPN, and I was actually up in Santa Barbara, California, covering Kobe Bryant's annual summer camp. And everyone, even though we're there congregating for Kobe, who was, the elite of the elite at that stage in their career, just coming off a finals win in Game 7 against the Boston Celtics, finals MVP, his 5th championship. But all anybody at that camp were talking about was LeBron James and what he was going to do. And so it takes me back to that moment. I remember going out to dinner the night before the decision special aired, and with some of the coaches at that camp. And, we had televisions on in the background, and Chris Broussard gets on SportsCenter and says, with a certain degree of formality, that LeBron will be joining Chris Bosh and Dwayne Wade in Miami, because that had already happened. The first domino to fall was Chris and Dwayne. But because we knew that the next day was going to be the TV special, and because it just seemed so like, I won't believe it till it comes out of that guy's mouth. Even Chris Broussard, who's an excellent reporter, I learned a lot from in my career. Even when Chris Broussard said it, you still didn't necessarily believe it until you saw LeBron sitting across from Jim Gray and hearing it in his own words.
How do you think the perception around the league has evolved toward LeBron? Because, I feel as someone kind of like the outside looking into the league, I haven't covered the league as closely as you have, obviously, but I feel like that a lot of the league has evolved in their perception of LeBron, not just the player, but the person.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, his coined phrase is more than an athlete, but he certainly walks the walk along with that talk of the talk. I mean, the fact that he has made the I Promise School in Akron, Ohio, and LeBron James Family Foundation such a core part of who he is and what he does, and he makes sure that if he's going to enter into a new business partnership, with a Chase Bank or with a Blaze Pizza, with a Beats by Dre, that not only are you going to, support me for me to lend my business acumen and my endorsement profile to you, but you are going to get involved with my community efforts. And to me, it's created a new paradigm for athletes to follow. And it's also, in a way, changed how athletes are viewed in terms of 10 years ago, oh my gosh, you're going to leave the team that drafted you? Where's the loyalty? Well, I think Ron and now others that have come after him have allowed the public to have their mind open to the fact that for years and years and years, there was no loyalty being shown by the teams towards the players. They sign a player, they tell them, we want you there for 5 years. And then, a year and a half into the deal, I'm talking about Blake Griffin, they trade you from Los Angeles to Detroit. This was, just 18 months before that happened. They had a presentation at Staples Center where they showed his jersey retired and hanging from the rafters. So I think, to sum it up, LeBron has shown that if you use your influence and leverage it in the proper way, you can accomplish all sorts of things that can both help out yourself and your community. And also, I think it opens some people's eyes to the fact that, just because for years we looked at it like, oh, the owner should make the decisions and the athletes follow afterwards. Why it doesn't necessarily have to be that case, because the athletes, are the ones that are winning the game.
Dave, speaking of that, we know that LeBron in many ways, took all of the fire in a lot of the things that have led athletes to be able to have they are today. And I argue that, for someone like in our backyard over here with Ben Simmons and the Sixers, having someone like LeBron mentoring him on and off the court, I think is a huge deal for a guy, because to me, if you're going to have anybody, teach you about the league and about being a player and about being a well-rounded athlete, you want it to be LeBron James, in Ben Simmons' ear, not maybe somebody else.
Oh, certainly. And listen, Ben and Rich Paul have had a relationship, going back, his entire career now. And sometimes it's Rich being in his ear. Sometimes it's LeBron being in his ear. Sometimes it's Tristan Thompson. Sometimes it's, Anthony Davis. There are many agencies in this league that have many high-profile players, but there are few, in my estimation, I've been covering the league for, a decade and a half, that do the things to build a brotherhood and a camaraderie amongst their clients. Clutch, they have an annual trip to Toronto in non-COVID times, but in the summertime, the Clutch athletes all go to Toronto for, a long weekend get-together of, dinners and drinks and working out together and sharing stories. And you see that permeate throughout the NBA season where they pick each other up on phone calls or social media, and then get together, when the schedule allows it over All-Star or when they're playing each other's teams. And that is great for Ben, but it's also great for, Tyrese Maxey, the Kentucky prospect who is now part of Clutch. And now Ben's going to be passing on that knowledge to Tyrese. And that will also allow Ben to mature and grow into more of a man himself. And so, I have a lot of respect for their operation there. And, probably none of it's possible without LeBron being one of the greatest players of all time. And that allows everybody to build around that. But it's not like people just, feeding and siphoning off of LeBron. Now it's a self-perpetuating group.
Dave McMenamin joining us here on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline on 97.3 ESPN. Make sure to follow him on Twitter at Mick10 for all your NBA news as well as Lakers and LeBron coverage. And speaking of the Lakers and LeBron, what do you think of this Lakers team as they're coming out of this pandemic, heading into Orlando? We know LeBron says he's ready and he's all mentally full go, but we know without Avery Bradley, the report comes out, they're going to, probably be adding J.R. Smith. That will be an interesting drama in and of itself heading into that bubble. So what do you think the state of the Lakers is heading into this bubble 8-game stretch run?
Well, the way I look at it is the Lakers were one of the top 3 or 4 teams the entire season. Right from the very start, when they had a new coaching staff, they had half of a new roster. They had LeBron James in year 17 switching to a different position on the court they never played before. They found a rhythm rather quickly and sustained it. And so do I think they'll be clicking in all cylinders like they were in mid-March when this thing shut down? No. Had the season continued from March onward, barring any injury, I think the Lakers would have been the clear favorites in the postseason. But even if you take this hiatus into account, and yes, you lose a guy like Avery Bradley, who was a steady contributor for them, they're still, to me, one of the top 3 or 4 teams. And if they can stay healthy, talent wins in this league. And you have motivated talent in LeBron James and Anthony Davis. The J.R. Smith thing is interesting because of the history with him, LeBron and Cleveland. But J.R. Smith, if the Lakers have it their way, he won't be playing a major role. You're going to see Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and Alex Caruso taking the lion's share of those Avery Bradley minutes. JR will be there. If you want to get a different look out there, try to get you a bucket. But they also have, Rajon Rondo to play backup point. They have Deion Waiters to play backup shooting guard. So he's just part of the group. But to me, the big conversation is that who are you going to say is, head and shoulders above the Lakers going into this restart? And there aren't teams you can point to. You can say that, a team like the Sixers should be in a better position they would have been because now Ben Simmons is healthy, and that's valid. But you also say that they had the best home court advantage in the league, and they lose that. You can say that a team like Toronto, because they've had so much continuity and excellent coach Nick Nurse, they're perhaps a sleeper there. But you can just get back to the conversation. The top level talent in Pascal Siakam and Kyle Lowry can't match with a LeBron and Anthony Davis. You say the Bucks, and maybe the Bucks would be the most worthy opponent out there. but they just haven't had the postseason experience that a guy like LeBron has. Giannis is maxed out at the conference finals and lost 4 games in a row to the Raptors. So, the Lakers have to be in every conversation you have about who the NBA champion will be. And to me, a huge part of it will come down to health, and that includes COVID-19 health. And beyond that, who plays the best? We haven't seen it yet from Giannis. We haven't seen it yet from Paul George. Maybe those guys have this breakthrough moment and they crown themselves a champion. But until that happens, I think you get to look at LeBron, the Lakers, and obviously what Kawhi can bring to the Clippers as the players most likely to lead their team to a chip.
You mentioned just a moment ago about the Sixers in the Eastern Conference. I know the Sixers are becoming a bit of a trendy pick as a dark horse contender. I know Tobias Harris was on First Take saying he expects them to have a chance to win the championship. What is your perspective on the Sixers heading into this 8-game stretch? Because we know that this team has barely had any games together, and even the players have admitted, look, we know we've had issues with chemistry. Do you think the Sixers can figure out that chemistry before the playoffs actually start and really make a run?
I covered the Sixers throughout their playoff run last year. The Lakers weren't in it, so ESPN assigned me, and so I was around that team a lot. And listen, Joel Embiid, when he was right, to me, looked better than Kawhi Leonard did in that second round series. I think he's as dominant as any player in the league when he's right. You would hope that he has used this time to get himself more right than he ever has before. I think you can really ride him. And I think Ben Simmons is as physically dominant of a wing defender as this league has right now. Offensively, I think there's still some holes. And I don't think they really addressed the shooting the way they should have. They just got the guy from Dallas who, shoots around 40% from 3 percentage-wise, but, I've seen him play a bunch from in the Western Conference. He's not someone that I put on the same level as a shooter as, some of the guys that they had before in Bellinelli or J.J. Redick that they have really replaced. But, again, if a lot of teams are going to be sloppy here because of the rust factor, I do like a team that's defensive-oriented to have perhaps a leg up where they look to be a better version of themselves because all the opposing and their offense is struggling. And certainly, the defensive force that Joel and Ben bring to the court is legitimate. And I think perhaps that gives them a chance to go further than they would have in a regular season where, everybody, as I mentioned with the Lakers thing, is clicking on all cylinders as it would normally after an 82-game season.
Dave, before I let you go, and I really appreciate your time today, I'd be neglectful to overlook the reason why we are even in the situation we're in, which is the COVID-19 pandemic that shut everything down. What do you think of the league's approach to this? It almost feels like, if everything I read and hear, that it's almost this attitude of that, there's this new norm that, guys are going to test positive potentially, and they're just going to work through it as almost like an injury. Is that the right attitude to have? And how effective do you think this bubble will be in insulating the players from the outside world?
The only time will tell. I know that several folks around the league were, basically relieved that the number of tests that came back when they started testing everyone in market last week was only 16 out of 308 players. And 16 cases of COVID-19 shouldn't be something that anyone is feeling good about. But the alternative was, I had some league executive tell me that I thought it would be 50 plus. And, while we don't have a cure for the coronavirus yet, we know that, people who are under the age of 30 and in good shape are generally okay. And it's something they can recover from. And so, all the league can do is try. That's what you owe it to everybody involved who has dedicated their lives to NBA basketball, to try to find a solution to finish this season off and then find a way to enter into another season while the veil of coronavirus hangs over all of us. And, to me, there's nothing grossly irresponsible that I read about the plan. Even the idea about Disney workers going in and out of the bubble. Adam Silver said on a conference call on Friday that there has been some talks about a subset of Disney employees who would perhaps have greater interaction with the players, maybe someone driving the bus to and from the hotels to the arenas, someone who is involved in meal prep, and perhaps offering some sort of financial incentive to those employees so they are not going back out into Orange County, Florida, where the cases are spiking, and they are remaining in the bubble in order to, limit the exposure of the players. I think that's as being as responsible as you can. And obviously, I have faith that if they get down there and for whatever reason there is a spike in cases within the bubble, Adam Silver is the same commissioner who unilaterally decided to put the season on pause without consulting any of the owners. He recognized that when Rudy Gobert tested positive, that it just would not be responsible to move forward until they could stop things and gather more information. And I assume that if something similarly happened down in Orlando, as difficult and disappointing it would be after all the effort they put in to the plan, that he would do the right thing, Adam Silver would do the right thing, and just say, you know what, we tried, but we're going to have to wash our hands of this season and hope for next year.
He is Dave McMenamin. Follow him on Twitter at Mc10, ESPN NBA reporter. Also, we all got some free time on our hands, so why don't you go pick up the book, Return of the King, the book that he wrote with Brian Windhorst. It's a great read, a lot of great information in there about the whole journey of LeBron going back to Cleveland to winning a championship. As all guests, Dave McMenamin joined us today on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Dave, appreciate your time.
Appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Josh Hennig here on 97.3 ESPN. Back to your text messages next at 609-403-0973 here on 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City. Josh Hennig back here on the warm-up 97.3 ESPN. Back to your text in just a bit at 609-403-0973. Reminder coming up next, Sports Bash. Mike Gill, Hunter Brody with you. Scott Lauber talking some Phillies MLB coming up at 3:15. Football at 4 with Jeff Mosher. And Tony D'Angelo, a Ranger. I feel like this is a FOB, friend of Broads situation. I'm getting the nod over here. So yes, it's a friend of Broads situation. So get a little perspective from a hockey player's perspective on coming back to play. All on the Sports Bash next on 97.3 ESPN. 609-403-0973. Joey D from Ventnor chimes in and says, I like Tobias recognizing they need to be confident going forward. Bench shooting will be key, and Shake Milton will be a big factor. That's Joey D from Ventnor. Well, the shooting, no matter who it is going to be key, because we know that when the Sixers have had success in the past, they've been able to space the floor, get some contributors on the outside, allow Ben and Joel to have the opportunity to do what they do. Milton is interesting because, as I've been saying on the air here, and I was telling Hunter off the air, I believe Shake, putting him in the starting lineup with Ben, allows you to, in some ways, replicate what the best teams in the league do. Almost every team in the league has multiple ball handlers on the court at one time. You look at, there's times that LeBron is on the court with Rajon Rondo, or situations where you look at Miami, Jimmy Butler's on the court with Goran Dragic. Name the playoff team. Giannis on the court with Eric Bledsoe. They all have multiple ball handlers. So I think if you put another very good ball handler on the court with Ben, you have an opportunity to make the offense more flexible, spread things out. And I think you're right, Joey. I think there's something to be said for Shake could have a big impact on this team's chances to make a playoff run. Because when you think about it, the rest of the conference, there's no legitimate favorite. The people assume the Bucks are the favorite, but I'm starting to be convinced of what everybody is saying. No matter what platform you're listening to or reading, everyone's kind of coming in with a clean slate here. No one really has a hot streak to feed off of. Everybody's been basically sitting and working out for what's going to be 4 months by the time they actually get started. So you think about it, what's an NBA offseason? The NBA finals are usually in June. So you got July, August, September, October. That's 4 months. You basically have had an offseason. You've had an offseason before they come back for these 8 games and then the playoffs. So everyone is kind of coming in on a clean slate. And if the Sixers play their cards right and everything adds up, they have a legitimate chance as anybody to make some noise and make a playoff run. But everything's got to add up. All those muscles Ben put on have actually got to be useful. Joel working out 6 days a week actually has to add up to him being in great shape. You can work out 6 days a week. It doesn't mean you're always in great shape. I've been in plenty of gyms where dudes work out 6 days a week, and they're as pudgy as anybody else. So that's got to add up. Tobias, he says we've been working on our chemistry. We've been having Zoom calls. Well, is that actually going to be beneficial and productive out there, having all these Zoom calls and everybody checking in and touching base with each other? I haven't heard much about Al Horford's 4 months. What's been going on with him? I'm assuming he's a veteran and staying in shape. Josh Richardson, how's his health? Ben Simmons coming off injury. How's his health? If everything adds up, yeah, the Sixers are going to be a huge threat. But I think it comes down to everything's got to land in place, because let's be realistic. The Bucks still have Giannis. The Heat got some shooters around Jimmy Butler. Celtics are a good team. Raptors can play offense and defense with the best of them. Eastern Conference has got some threats. The Sixers are going to go out there and make a run to a championship. And yeah, as Dave McMenamin said, it would be juicy if you had LeBron versus Ben Simmons in the NBA Finals. I'd sign up for that. I don't know about anybody else, but heck yeah, I'm all for that. 7-game series, Embiid versus Davis, Simmons versus LeBron. Sign me up. Heck yeah. One more text before we get out of here. 609-403-0973. Texter chimes in and says, this is my MMA gambling buddy over here. I'm done with MMA. Back to betting on Norwegian dart throwing. Yeah, we had a loss yesterday. Look, we had 3 weeks of winners. And as I told you all before, if you would do what I do, which is just cash out every time you win, you're okay. You're not losing the money you won. And I hope you did that, Texter. I hope you cashed out before you lost this weekend. Listen, Mike Perry came out and looked like a monster. I mean, the dude had no real training camp. He went into training camp with no real coaching, worked out with a couple people. He had his girlfriend in his corner, hyping him up, icing him down, and he won the fight handily over Mickey Gall. I mean, no offense to Gall, but he just did not look completely prepared for what Perry was bringing in there. But, Gall's a young guy. He's a chance to learn from the opportunity. Now Mike Perry saying he wants to move up the middleweight and fight people. I love the guy's bravado, but he feels like he's really all over the place. But look, good win for him. You can't win them all. I would never bet on Norwegian dart throwing because I don't even know how the scoring works. That would be a whole process. I'm more willing to learn soccer in Europe than I am about the scoring for Norwegian dart throwing. But that's just me.